today we're going to be doing a basic service on a John Deere D105. This service will be similar for most of the D series, and we're going to be using a John Deere home maintenance kit. Product number is LG271. This comes with everything you need, oil, filter, spark plug. You can get some other kits off Amazon that are a little cheaper, but I prefer to use the actual John Deere kit for these just because it makes it super easy. In this LG271 kit, we'll unbox and see what we've got. So we have got 2 quarts of 4-cycle oil. We've got an oil filter. We've got a new air filter. We've got a new spark plug and fuel filter. And lastly, a little sticker so we can notate when the service was done. So first thing we're going to do is go ahead and drain the oil. To do that, we'll open up the hood. We'll loosen the dipstick, the oil filler cap. That'll just help the oil flow a little quicker. And then your oil drain plug is this cap right here. I'll try and bring you in and show you that a little better. So this cap here will loosen. That's where the oil will drain from. So let me grab a bucket and I'll do that now. So now I've got my bucket set up to catch the oil. If you have an actual oil catch can, that's fine. Otherwise, an old coffee can, a bucket, anything will do. On this cap, there's a little notch, so this doesn't fully unscrew. You just turn it clockwise, and then you can pull it straight off. And here is that little notch. So it just fits over the pin, turns clockwise to come off. We'll set that somewhere where we won't lose it. And we'll let the oil drain. This is draining very slowly, so it may have been low on oil. Now I've just realized the reason this is draining so slowly is because I did not warm up the engine. Prior to getting started on the oil change, it's best to let the engine get warm, run it for just a few minutes. That'll help this oil flow a lot more freely, and you won't be sitting here for an hour waiting on the oil to drain like I'm about to do. So while we wait on the oil to drain, we will now move to the other side of the engine, to the oil filter. Oil filter, move this out of the way. Oil filter is right here. To come off, this will twist counterclockwise. These should only be hand tight. Sometimes people crank them down on there, so we'll see if we need a tool to get that off. But essentially we'll unscrew this. There will be some oil that spills out, so we'll put something here to catch that. And I will grab the new filter and we'll get that done now. Got my high-tech oil catching device here. Let's see. There you are. Once you get it loose, you can slowly untwist. Again, you're going to have some oil come out of here. So, again, oil filter just threads on there and will come straight off. And I made a mess with oil down there, but that's okay. We'll catch most of it in the cup. So we'll let that drain for a few minutes and then we'll get the new one on. Here's our new filter that came in the kit. And what we want to do before we put this on is we want to put some oil along this rubber O-ring here. That'll help it help everything seal up. You can use new oil. I will just use some old that I get from the floor. And we just want to coat that all around that ring there. Again, that's just going to ensure we get a really good seal when we thread it back on there, which we will do in just a moment. Alright, so now we're ready to put the new filter on. I like to take a cloth and just clean off this surface a little bit. Again, that's where this rubber gasket is going to seat against. So we want to make sure it has a good seal. So now all we're going to do is line that up and start threading it on. And again, you want it to be tight, but just hand tight. You don't need to crank this down. So that is good. And again, as long as that rubber gasket is sealed well against the backing there, you're in good shape. Now I'll try and clean up the mess I've made under here a little bit. We'll now move on to the spark plug. The spark plug on this machine is right up here in the front. Just follow this lead down, and it's sort of hard to see, but this just seats on the end of the spark plug, so we will pull that off. We may need a pair of pliers for that. Oh, there we are. So that just sits over this end of the plug. So let me grab a spark plug wrench or socket and we will get that guy out of there. So spark plug is going to be a 5/8 inch socket. You will need a deep socket to reach this, and that will just slide straight over the top. Can't give you a very good view there. And then we will begin to loosen that up. Once we get it just loosened, we should be able to twist it out the rest of the way by hand. There we are. Twist, twist, twist. There we are. And there is the old spark plug. It's a little gunky, but we'll get the new one on. An important note on spark plugs. The gap between here needs to be very specific. So if I compare these, I can tell they're pretty close. I think the new one is a bit closer. So we're just going to check that. We'll use one of these spark plug gap tools. According to the manual, this model needs a 0.30 as the spark plug gap. And how this works, it's thin on one side, and as you go, it gets thicker. So we're just going to put this in between there. We'll slide it over to 0.30. And then we will just make sure that it just fits in that gap. So we can come down just a little bit on that, and I'll just push down. This is fairly flexible. Now, that's pretty good. So we will now go ahead and thread this new one in. New one's going to go in just as the old one came out. So So we will slide it back in here. We'll take this slow. We want to make sure that we don't cross thread it. So if you start feeling some resistance early on, just back it out and try again. This one's threading in nice and easily. We'll thread that in and then give it a quick tighten with the wrench. Again, you do not need to crank this down in there. It just needs to be seated tightly. So, put my wrench back on there. We'll just give it a snug it up there. And that is good. Now that we've got the spark plug back in, we'll take our spark plug boot and we'll fit that back over just the same way it came off. I'm just going to put it over the end of the spark plug, give it a little push, you'll hear a little click, and that is it. Spark plug is done. We'll now address the air filter. Here's our new one. To get the old one off, you've got these two knobs here. You'll just twist those to the unlock position. This will lift straight off. And the filter will just pull straight off. Just give it a little wiggle. And there we are. This filter is pretty grimy. And there's our air intake. Again, this end just slots right over there. I'll get something to wipe this up a bit and we'll get the new one on. Alright, so I've wiped that up a bit. Not super necessary. I just like to do it to make sure that the new filter is not immediately just sucking in a bunch of dust and dirt. So to install this one, we're just going to line it up over there, over the hole. And then this end, not sure if you can see that, this end will just slot straight down. There we are. So this end just kind of butts up against here, and that ensures it's seated properly. You also notice the old filter has this foam cover over it. Totally personal preference. Some filters come with that. The one in the John Deere kit does not, so I'm just going to run it dry just like that without the foam. Now, we can go ahead and reinstall the cover. Again, before I do that, I'm going to wipe this up so we're not sucking in a bunch of dirt into our nice new filter. I've cleaned the inside up a little bit. This will just sit right back on. And then we'll just twist these. They'll fall into place. You can lock them back. Let's see here. And locked. Now that is back on. New air filter installed. This guy will go in the trash. Last thing to do will be to replace our fuel filter. These filters are directional. So if we look, it may be difficult to see, there is an arrow showing the direction in which fuel flows through this. In our case, it needs to go this way because the fuel will come in from this line, runs up, and then down into the carburetor. So we can see the old one looks absolutely disgusting. And all we're going to do is loosen these hose clamps on either side. We'll be able to pull that off. Again, we want to have some sort of can or cup because there will be some fuel in these lines that will come out when we do this. Now, hopefully you can see me here. I'm just going to take some needle nose pliers and my same cup we used before, and I'll tuck this in there, and I'll loosen the clamp on the bottom first. that loose. So I've got that red clamp pulled down there. This hose is stuck on pretty well, so I may need to get another pair of pliers to assist in taking that off. Now that we've made a terrible mess with fuel everywhere, get something to plug that hose up here. Now before I lose any more fuel, I'm going to install the new filter. Again, make sure, in this case, the arrow is going this way. So this end will go on the bottom, this will attach to the top hose. So let me get that seated now. And we'll slide that clamp back up. Slightly larger pair of pliers here will help. There we are. Perfect. So that's seated nicely. Do the same with the top. Okay. Slide that clamp down a bit. Now, hopefully you could see what I was doing there. I was trying to work quickly so I didn't spill any more fuel. So this bottom hose comes from the gas tank. So that will go up and sit on that little ridge there. We slid the hose clamp up. Top one, just the same. Attach it to the top. We slid the clamp down. So now our fuel will flow through this filter and catch any of the nasty stuff. If we look at our old filter, we can see this thing is just gross. Probably has not been changed in a long time. And normally these are clear so you can see the filter inside. This one we cannot. So new fuel filter definitely needed. We'll add that to the cup of junk. Alright, last but not least, we will reinstall our oil drain cap. This has been draining for a while. Still got a little drip. Not really concerned about that. So, to reinstall this, again, we've got the little, wipe that off a bit. Got the little pin there. Hopefully you can see. This cap will sit over that pin, just like that, and then twist, and that will lock it in place. So now we're ready to add our new oil, and we will be almost done. All right, so according to John Deere, this machine calls for 1.5 quarts of oil. I'll just sit that down there for now. So we'll put our funnel in. Make sure your funnel is clean and you're not pouring a bunch of debris down into your engine. Now we will take our new oil. So again, we need 1.5 quarts. So, see if I can do this one-handed. This will be 1 quart. There's 1 quart in. And now we'll need half of this one. On most bottles of oil, there's a little clear spot on the back here, so we can see we are currently here, so we can use that to gauge when we are at half a quart. And just a bit more. That looks good. Perfect. So now we will put our dipstick back in, tighten that up. Now we'll want to run the machine for a few minutes, get it warm, and then we'll recheck that level. Anytime you change a filter, a lot of oil will actually soak up into this filter, so it is likely we may have to add a little bit more once that's done, but we'll check that now. Now we've let it run for a few minutes, we can double check our oil level, and to do that we can pull this. We'll give that a quick wipe off there, and then we'll go back down and out, and we can see, hopefully you can see, we want to be between these 2 arrows, and we look pretty good there, so that's good. And with the engine running, you also want to double check all the connections you've made. So the oil drain, I made sure I did this while the engine was running. Also, but you want to make sure you're not getting any oil coming out of there. And same thing, you want to make sure you have fuel flowing into the filter and you don't have any gas leaks around these hoses. And lastly, you just want to check your filter and make sure that's sealed nicely. Again, I made a pretty good mess with oil when I took that off, but I'll clean that up a bit and make sure. But otherwise, that is service done. So only thing left to do will be to take our sticker and notate the date and the hours on the machine. We'll put that on there, and then we will be good for the season. So I filled out my sticker. 430 hours on this machine. It is February 28th, 26. And we will put this, you can put it on the frame, you can put it on the engine. Doesn't really matter. For me, I'll just throw it on this engine cover. And now we will know when the service was done and when we need to do another. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something. Sorry for the poor filming work, but I'm just a guy in his garage. So hope you guys have a great day.